Hello, everyone. I'm Ian Smith with FedSmith.com, and I'm here to talk to you today about two bills that were recently introduced in Congress that would significantly increase the amount of paid leave given to federal employees. The Comprehensive Paid Leave for Federal Employees Act has been introduced in both the House and the Senate. One was introduced by Congressman Don Bayer in June, and a companion version was introduced more recently in late July by Senator Brian Schatz. Both bills would give federal employees 12 weeks of paid leave for situations currently covered under the Family and Medical Leave Act. That's FMLA. And that's leave that right now is unpaid for most qualifying reasons. But here's the thing, federal employees already have a pretty robust set of leave benefits. So in this video, I'll break down what these bills would actually do, where they differ from one another, what you already have in terms of leave benefits, and what gap this would realistically fill. I'll also address whether each bill has a realistic shot of even becoming law. Now, before we get into the bills, let's do just a brief refresher on FMLA, and again, that stands for the Family and Medical Leave Act. FMLA entitles eligible federal employees to up to 12 weeks of leave per year for qualifying family and medical reasons. And those reasons could include a serious health condition that prevents you from performing your job, caring for a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition, and also qualifying situations tied to a family member's military deployment, things like arranging childcare, handling legal and financial affairs during a call to active duty. Here's the key point, though. FMLA already protects your job. Whether your leave is paid or unpaid, you can't be fired for taking it. But for most of these qualifying reasons, everything except parental leave, that leave is unpaid. You can substitute your accrued sick leave or annual leave during an FMLA period, but you're drawing down balances that have real financial value, which we'll get to in a moment. You need at least 12 months of federal service to be eligible for FMLA. So what would these bills actually do for you? Both the House and Senate versions would make all 12 weeks of FMLA leave paid. Right now, the only FMLA situation that comes with paid leave is parental leave for a birth, adoption, or foster placement. These bills would extend that to the remaining qualifying reasons. So again, your own serious illness, caring for an ill family member, and military deployment situations. The paid leave would supplement your existing leave balances. You would not be required to burn through your accrued sick leave or annual leave before using it. And that's a significant detail because, as we'll discuss, those accrued balances carry real retirement value. Both versions require 12 months of federal service to qualify, which matches the existing FMLA eligibility threshold. Now let's talk about where these two bills diverge, because the differences are meaningful. The House version, introduced by Congressman Bayer, has bipartisan sponsorship. Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican from Pennsylvania, is a co-sponsor. The Senate version, introduced by Senator Schatz, has 7 co-sponsors, and every one of them is a Democrat or caucuses with Democrats. But the bigger differences are what's actually covered. The House bill explicitly covers leave for an employee or family member who is a survivor of dating violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, or stalking. That could include time off to seek medical care, legal services, safe housing, or counseling. The Senate bill has no comparable provision. The House bill also covers pregnancy loss, an unsuccessful fertility treatment cycle, a failed adoption match or surrogacy arrangement, and the death of an infant during the birth parent's recovery period. Again, the Senate bill doesn't address these situations. And finally, they differ on the work obligation requirement. Under the existing paid parental leave program, you have to agree in writing to return to your agency for 12 weeks after using the leave. The Senate bill keeps that 12-week requirement for parental leave, but it does not extend it to the newly paid categories. The House bill takes a different approach. It replaces the flat 12-week requirement with an obligation equal to however much paid leave you actually used. So if you use 6 weeks of paid leave, your return to work obligation would be 6 weeks. Now, before you get too excited about these bills, let's take a step back and look at some of the benefits federal employees already have, because it's a lot. First, there's paid parental leave. Since October of 2020, federal employees have been entitled to 12 weeks of paid leave for the birth, adoption, or foster placement of a child. A 2-week paid parental bereavement leave benefit was added in 2022 for the death of a child. So parental situations are already covered by paid leave. Second, there's sick leave. Federal employees accrue sick leave at 4 hours per pay period, which is 13 days per year, and there is no cap on how much you can accumulate. Over a long career, that balance can grow to be quite large. And here's the part many employees don't fully appreciate until they're closer to retirement. Unused sick leave is converted into additional creditable service time in your annuity calculation. That means a substantial sick leave balance at retirement can add months, or even more than a year perhaps, to your pension calculation. And third, there's annual leave. Your accrual rate depends on your years of service. It ranges from 4 hours per pay period for newer employees up to 8 hours per pay period, or 26 days per year, after 15 years. Most employees can carry over up to 240 hours into the following year. And unlike sick leave, unused annual leave is paid out as a lump sum when you separate from federal service. So it's a real financial asset. And of course, there are 11 paid federal holidays per year on top of all of this. So what would actually change for you if one of these bills became law? Since paid parental leave already exists, the practical gap these bills fill is everything else. Your own serious illness, caring for a seriously ill spouse, child, or parent in military deployment situations. The House bill would also add coverage for domestic violence and stalking-related needs and for pregnancy loss and fertility-related situations. You might be thinking, I can already use my sick leave or annual leave for those things. And that's true, you can. But supporters of the bill argue that substituting accrued leave is not cost-free. Drawing down your sick leave balance costs you creditable service at retirement. As I said, that is an important benefit with respect to computing your retirement annuity. Using annual leave costs you money from the lump sum payout you'd receive at separation. And if you're a newer federal employee, you may not have much accrued leave to draw on in the first place. Supporters also point to federal workforce data. According to Senator Schatz, roughly 40% of the federal workforce is eligible to retire within the next 3 years, while only about 6% of federal employees are under age 30. The sponsors cite research estimating paid leave could save the government at least $50 million annually in turnover and replacement costs. Schatz framed it as preventing federal workers from having to choose between caring for their families and keeping their jobs. On the other side, however, the critics, including Republican members of the House Oversight Committee, when earlier versions were debated, have argued that federal employees already have a generous benefits package. One argument that has been raised by House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, a Republican from Kentucky, is that when you add up all the leave categories plus federal holidays, a federal employee could theoretically only work about 8 months out of the year under this legislation. That characterization may be an oversimplification, but it gives you a sense of the political headwinds. So will either of these bills actually pass? To be honest, probably not, at least not in this session of Congress. This legislation has been introduced in various forms going back to at least 2021. It's never reached a floor vote in either chamber. The current Congress is controlled by Republicans, and the political appetite for expanding federal employee benefits has historically been limited on that side of the aisle. The House version does have one Republican sponsor in Brian Fitzpatrick, which gives it a bipartisan label, but the Senate version doesn't have any Republican support at all. But that doesn't mean these bills are pointless. Each reintroduction keeps the issue on the legislative radar, and political dynamics can shift. Paid parental leave itself took years of failed attempts before it passed in 2019 with bipartisan support as part of the defense spending bill. And that's something that you'll see happen a lot too, is you have these separate bills, and then when a big bill that's considered must-pass legislation, like the National Defense Authorization Act, comes up, a lot of times bills like this can get rolled into that. Also, before I close, I wanted to get your opinion. I've covered these bills in articles I've written about them before, and the feedback from FedSmith readers was mixed. Some people liked the idea and they were supportive of the extra paid leave, but other people said, I don't think this is a good idea, As federal employees, we already have a lot of paid benefits and paid leave benefits. So why do we need this extra legislation? And some people even said they were concerned it might create a negative opinion or perception of federal employees among the public if something like this was to become law. So I wanted to put the question to you, our YouTube viewers. Are you in favor of this legislation? Do you think it's a good idea or not? Would you like to see additional paid leave for federal employees? Please let me know in the comments. We'll continue to track both bills and report on any developments. So for full details on everything I've covered today, head over to FedSmith.com. We've got in-depth articles there on both the House and Senate versions, as well as many other topics that affect your pay and benefits as a current or former federal employee. I've left links to related articles in the description with more details, so please check those out. Also, while you're there on FedSmith.com, you can subscribe to our free email list to get our latest articles and news updates delivered straight to your inbox. And if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us reach more federal employees just like you. Thank you for watching and have a good day.